large number of students in India plan to pursue their masters abroad. However, hustling your way through the admission processes might be a cumbersome task until you have all the correct information. Before we proceed, I would like you to know what Educational Testing Service, popularly known as the ETS, is all about. As the world's largest private educational testing and measurement organization, ETS is known for assessments built on rigorous research and an uncompromising commitment to quality. Each year, they develop, administer, and score more than 50 million tests, including the TOEFL, GRE, and Praxis tests, in more than 180 countries at more than 9,000 locations. The mission of ETS is to advance quality and equity in education by providing fair and valid assessments, research, and related services. Their products and services measure knowledge and skills, promoting learning and performance, and support education and professional development for all people worldwide. Their assessments, learning solutions, and pioneering research help students, educators, and employers clearly see the next step on their paths to new possibilities. I'm Sabah Ahmed from Careers 360, and I have here with me today Jay Bryant and Tanya Bajaj from ETS, who shall throw light on the graduate record examination, that's the GRE, and answer your questions pertaining to the significance of the exam, how and when you should apply, eligibility, validity, and much more. Jay Bryant is the Associate Director, Business School Relations, ETS. With a career spent entirely in education, Jay has worked extensively both in classroom and administration. Since 2004, he has overseen admissions, recruitments, financial aid, international students, and student affairs in graduate business education. He has served in global higher education markets at both UC San Diego and Thunderbird School of Global Management, which is a part of Arizona State University. Currently, Jay serves as the Associate Director, Business School Relations for ETS in the Western US and Canada regions. Tanya Bajaj is the Director, Client Relations, GRE, ETS India. She has over a decade of experience in the higher education space. She actively engages with senior leaders at institutions, government stakeholders, and related organizations in the industry to enhance ETS's position primarily in the business school market in India. She has previously worked as the Assistant Director, Marketing and Business Development, Law School Admission Council, where she was involved in securing new business and executing growth strategies through outreach and branding activities for the India region. Now, Jay will take us through what ETS does on a global level. It'll be followed by Tanya taking us through ETS India. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Bryant. Glad that I can be here with you today. As Sabah mentioned, I work currently with ETS, primarily with business schools in the western region of the United States. Though ironically, I'm coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts today, where a number of business school deans and admissions folks we convened over the past 2 days. As we do work together a lot, and my job is really in the relations between ETS, the TOEFL test, the GRE test, and the schools themselves. So that's what I was doing here, networking and providing support for them. So always good to see my colleagues from literally hundreds of schools that were here. ETS is an organization that I've been familiar with forever. I started my career in the classroom, actually in secondary school, not in higher ed, and we were using ETS products even then. They work closely with the AP program, so that was my first interaction with them. My first job, in fact, for ETS was actually as an AP test grader. Was very glad to return after a 15-year career within business schools where I got my MBA and stayed on and worked for many years as an admissions director, recruiter. I've been to India many times. Love it. It's been a bit. I need to get back. But there for recruitment purposes and We got to know the students there, the desires, what it is you're looking for in schools, the diversity, the really great talent that comes here and around the world from India. Schools have relied on organizations like ETS for quite a long time to provide a standardized way to assess students before they or as they're applying, so applicants, to the schools to get an idea: are you meeting the thresholds in a number of different ways through the tests, on the verbal, quantitative, and writing portions of those assessments, to get an idea who's coming in, to kind of level that class to see where you may need some assistance as you start the program that you go into. We are located all over the world with more than 1,000 testing centers. I'm not sure how many in India. Maybe, Tanya, you know exactly that number. But all over the world. And as we went down into various COVID lockdowns around the world in the past few years, which we've all experienced, the ability to even take those tests at a distance from your home, or in my case, I could do it in my hotel room today if you're traveling for work. But the ability to take both the GRE and TOEFL at home as a permanent option is something that I was very excited to be involved with. And I've seen many students come through and be very successful applying to schools, getting into schools, and are now enrolled and going along with their studies. So that is it right now. We do a number of different assessments. It's not just the TOEFL and GRE. I could probably go on for hours about the multitude that you could come across, but that's not why you're here. So I'm going to pass it on to Tanya to let her speak a little bit about ETS in India.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you so much, everyone, to have us here. I'm very happy to be here myself. To give you a brief understanding of the work that we are doing here, it is precisely, I work in the same field as Jay does, but in the India and the South Asia region, where we're looking to enhance our relationships with universities in India and gain a stronger presence within this market as well. The ETS India subsidiary was formed and put in place only last year to be able to work more closely within this region and to be able to service our stakeholders in a much better fashion. Most of our stakeholders have always been universities and students, and we are currently also working with several companies who can help you gain that extra advantage with the Gre General Test, as well as support your careers and dreams to study abroad, or even if it is to study in India.
What does GRE stand for?
Graduate Record Examination. It's been around for a long time. I think that the just GRE name is probably more what you're going to hear.
Which countries and courses is GRE needed for?
Basically, business schools worldwide use the Gre General Test as a part of their admissions process, whether it is for specialized master's programs, MBAs, and any other graduate business programs. In fact, the GRE test is one of the most widely used tests to measure a student's readiness for graduate level work. And this is the only test that can help you get into graduate school, business school, so on and so forth. At this point in time, we have close to 1,300 business schools worldwide who accept the Gre General Test as an admission criteria. That said, we are also working to develop these kind of relationships and have the GRE scores accepted within the India region as well. And I'm happy to share that we have about close to 100 institutions in India too that accept the Gre General Test for their admission programs.
Okay.
In terms of the countries that you're talking about, GRE is widely accepted across the US, Canada, in India, Australia, UK as well.
I will add to that. Approximately maybe 10, 13 years ago, it's in the time that I was an admissions director, that was when it became very ubiquitous throughout the industry for GRE to be accepted. Prior to that, there's the GMAT test that's out there, and it's the one that people immediately think, oh, that must be the one I need to take for business school. Not true. Almost every school that I work with is taking both tests equally. They do not lean on one or the other. They don't just tell me that because I work at ETS. I did not work at ETS before, and that was very much the true case. Really, the GRE is just a different type of not completely different, but there are some differences in the test which make it a little bit different. Different backgrounds of students, things like that. It's the most widely used admissions test in the world, and not just in business, but they're accepting in law school and engineering school and things like that. If you're looking at a dual degree, a lot of times, maybe if you're doing engineer and business, which is very common, they'll require the GRE on the engineering side. So,
what is the difference between the GRE General Test and GRE Subject Test?
And I think many students do, sometimes ask us about what's the difference. So again, as I said, prospective applicants across the world who are interested in pursuing a master's degree or a specialized master's in business, a JD program, MBA, or a degree, a general master's degree, will take the GRE General Test. The goal of this test is to understand a student's capabilities in terms of their verbal reasoning, analytical writing, critical thinking skills. On the other hand, the GRE subject tests are achievement tests, which measure the student's knowledge on one particular field of study. So say, for example, someone has an extra edge in, say, a chemistry or a mathematics, and you want to be able to display your expertise or skill in that particular subject, it is always recommended for you to take the GRE test plus the GRE subject test as well, because that would give the admission officers a very clear indication of your current capabilities and also whether or not you will succeed in the new courses that you're looking and applying for. So in simple words, students who come from different educational or cultural backgrounds, the GRE subject test will provide that common measure to be able to compare these kind of candidates and their qualifications.
Now, the next question is related to a subject that's dreaded the most. What level of math content is included in the test?
In the subject test, math content, again, the way these tests are designed, Jay, you may add in here as well. The content is usually designed to assess your ability, whether or not you can interpret and analyze quantitative information and solve problems using basic mathematical models. So in general, the question types will include quantitative comparison, basic fundamental mathematical skills like data analysis, arithmetic, algebra, other kind of questions that are usually the ones that are tested upon in the GRE tests. Jay, would you like to add something here as well?
I primarily work with the GRE General Test, and there's it's not extreme depth level of quantitative assessment on that one. In fact, the highest level question is going to be about what I would call here Algebra 2. There's not calculus, there's not trigonometry. There is some geometry, some algebra. Really, it's a test of, can you take a problem, usually a word type problem, and figure out, where am I going with this? What tools do I need to answer this question and get and go from there? So it does use a lot of logic, both in the verbal and the quantitative section, I will say. But you do not have to know your calculus. If you've gone up that far, you can rest a little bit and focus more on, how do I take complicated questions and make them into a mathematical problem to solve?
What skills does the GRE General Test measure?
Very good. As I was getting into that with the quantitative side a moment ago, it is measuring a few different skills in the math area. Again, Algebra 2 being the highest level there, arithmetic, some geometry. More than anything, how to take a problem and make it into a math problem that is then solvable. That's really what I look at. That's what I would say on the quantitative side. On the verbal side, it is use of English, ability to form proper grammatic sentences, ability to read complex pieces. They could be on a variety of things. You might get a paragraph or two about some economics thing or some scientific experiment that went on. It doesn't require that you have an in-depth knowledge of any of that, but more that you can read something and analyze it and understand what the more in-depth meanings there are. There is a writing section on the test as well. writing is very, very important. I know, working in the business schools myself, the amount of writing that you wind up doing, maybe with future employers or uh, you know, internships, things like that, writing emails, the formality and everything in there. May seem strange that, hey, you're measuring that back on the GRE, but yes, your ability to do all of that is very important once you get to the business school. We look at all that because once you start in the school, it's expected you're going to go home and do your reading. Maybe it's different reading than if you did your undergraduate, maybe in engineering. Very different than reading like a business case and understanding the details, the main ideas, and what's going into that. So we're testing all of those. I would say my experience working in business schools and knowing so many admissions folks, the quantitative side is probably the first side they're going to look at, because you are going to be jumping into accounting and finance and other areas like that where math is just the basis of where most of that grows from. All of it's important, but there you go. Hopefully that helps you understand what we're looking for.
How many times in a year is the GRE exam held, and how can I obtain the GRE exam schedule?
Sure, this is a very simple one. The GRE test is actually administered several times in a year. I'd say over 50 times, which actually gives that extra advantage to the students. They want to be able to take the test more than once, as opposed to the Indian tests that we have, currently. We have the CAT and the MATs and the ZATs, ATMAs, and so many others that we have in India, which are administered just once in a year. So basically, in a sense, students tend to seal the deal with, that one attempt. And you could be having a bad day, on one of those days. But on the other hand, if you look at the GRE test, we offer that extra flexibility to students to be able to take the test more than once in a year. Actually, you can take it about 5 times in a year with a three-week gap between each test. So I think that gives you an extra advantage. On the other hand, the next part of the question was, where can you get this schedule? Again, this is very simple. A student is generally asked to open up an ETS account that is relevant on ets.gre or ets.org/mygre. You go onto there and open yourself an account and register yourself. All of the information regarding test schedule, test centers, whether you want to take the test at home or where you'll get your score reports, all of this is available in that one account. And most of our communications happen with students through that account as well. So that should be that one-stop solution for students. I'd encourage you to all open an account and see how it goes.
As a student, how many times can a student take the GRE?
So in one given year, a student can take the test about 5 times. But the only thing you want to remember is that you want to have a 21-day gap between the times you took the test. Say you took it on the 1st of the month, you want to give a gap of 21 days and then take the test the second time around, which would be the last week of the month, somewhere around then. As long as you're able to do that, you're good to go, and you can take the test about 5 times in a year.
Is there a difference in the number of times I can take the GRE General Test and the GRE Subject Test?
Yes, there is going to be a difference. As I said, and as Jay's been mentioning, the GRE test is a test of skill, and that can be taken several times over the year. And students who are looking at master's programs would, consider taking the GRE to be able to display their capabilities to admission officers and to show their readiness, that how ready they are to take on master's degrees and so on and so forth. The subject test, on the other hand, is administered only 3 times in a year, in September, in October, as well as in April. And again, the subject test, the understanding behind it is to show your extra skill or extra capability and expertise on one particular subject. So those are handled slightly differently. And again, all of this information in terms of how you want to register, where you want to pay up, if you want to reschedule the test, or any such questions, all of these are very well supported through the ETS account that I just mentioned. So you may want to explore that.
I might add in here as well, talking about how often the tests are available, and you can take the tests more than once. However, I always encourage take it as soon as you can. Now, when I say that, that includes give yourself the study and preparation time, which I think we'll probably come back to a little bit. But definitely do not be a procrastinator here. I have seen so many times in my career that someone not be admitted simply because they waited till the end to take their GRE test, wound up, having a bad day. There was traffic on the way to the site, which I hear happens sometimes in India. I've been in it plenty of times. Anything can happen the day of an assessment. You may just stress out too much, whatever, but give yourself the opportunity that if you need to take it a second time, it's possible. What I've seen is too many people putting all the pressure on one day, a week or two before the admissions or the application deadline, and that's just too much pressure for you. Give yourself time. I know I took my test at least I think about a year before I actually applied. I'm an over planner. I understand that's a lot, but I knew if I didn't get the score that I was anticipating, I still had a chance to improve it if I needed to. No one wants to take their test more than once, but it happens. So leave yourself that option.
I would like to add here is that the test is valid for 5 years. So I think that just gives it. It's so important for you to have the right score because you can use the score for about 5 years across applications.
My name is Dhirendra and I am from Uttar Pradesh. I have passed last year 12th class and I want to pursue BTech from foreign. Please give me a roadmap how I will. And I want to ask one more question. GRE exam will be conducted by whom and how it will be conducted? And the next question is that the colleges which are accepting this examination GRE is better than or not, which I am getting in this in my area, the colleges through JMails.
The GRE again would come in a little later. If you want to do your bachelor degree in the US, you may want to consider maybe a SAT or an ACT test. That is also if the university is asking you for those scores. And that is an English and math test. So you may want to look at those examinations. The GRE won't quite apply. It's only when you finished your bachelor's degree and you're looking to do a master's degree or your postgraduate studies, that's when the GRE scores would become of more importance to you. What was your next question again? In terms of the universities you want to apply. Again, you want to look at the universities that the SAT tests would are accepted by. You're a bit younger for the GRE. You have a few years to.
Jay, what is an ideal GRE score for engineering students?
Well, it varies widely from program to program and school to school. There are some schools, like I mentioned, I'm here in the Boston area, probably about a kilometer away from MIT. If you're applying there, your score average is going to need to be significantly higher than it might be at more of a state school or one that's not ranked in the top 4 or 5 schools in the world. The band is 230 to 270 on each section of the test. If you're applying more for something in liberal arts, it's probably going to look more at the verbal side. If you're looking something more of a STEM program or a business program, you're probably going to be wanting to focus more on your quantitative side. It's hard for me to say, hey, here's the score that you want to aim for. I will say that more or less the score in the middle, 250, is more or less the average of all test takers. That's not an exact statistic, but it more or less falls right around there. So if you're trying to apply for really top schools, you definitely want to be aiming above 250. If you're looking at tier 1 schools, I'd probably even say, depending if it's a STEM program, probably above 260. You'll get a percentile as well, give you an idea of the percentile of all test takers, where you fall in that. So if you're in the 10th percentile, you're doing really, really well. If you're in the 75th percentile and trying to get in a top tier school, you may want to consider retaking the test to bringing that up a little bit. So again, it's hard to say exactly, but what I will say is reach out to the schools that you're interested in. We all have some form of recruitment or someone who manages it or an admissions director, someone on the other end to answer these questions. But I will also throw this point out there. If it's available on the website, look there first. Everything that you do with a school is part of your admissions interview, whether you know that or not. So every time you contact the school, make sure you're going in with smart questions and look and see if they provide, here is kind of our average GRE score for coming in, before you go and ask them the questions they've already provided you the answers for. Sorry, that was not a direct answer, but that's the truth. It depends on the school.
Does admission to universities depend only on GRE scores? And this is something a lot of students are left wondering about.
A quick answer for that is absolutely not. There's many different things, and again, different schools, different programs are all going to run very differently. I will speak from a business school perspective, because that's where I've done all of my roles in admissions. We looked at a number of things. That was just, I will say the GRE is a standardized test, so we're actually able to compare, at least on an academic side or abilities side of that academics, we can directly compare. And we may have a threshold of, we really want students that are in the top 25th percentile, because the math is going to be really hard in this program, or that may be there. But it is, we looked at that. We looked at your undergraduate work, what sort of grades and what sort of school you went to and what sort of program you went through. We look at your, in the business schools, we looked at your work experience as well. Maybe not true if you're applying for an engineering program, or a specialized master's program in a business school, that you can come directly from university. But we looked at that. We did interviews, so your interpersonal skills, your soft skills, your ability to communicate effectively was all there. And again, depending on the school, I worked at one school which our focus was on international business. I expected all of my candidates to be able to speak about something with global affairs going on, which there's not a single question about any of that on the GRE. The other school was all about innovation, and I needed my students that I was interviewing, and in their essays, they needed to prove to me that they were themselves an innovative person and really wanting to bring that skill in to our school, which again, not tested on the GRE. So it depends on the programs, but absolutely yes, the GRE is just one place to look and one point to consider for that.
So can the GRE help to get admission in PhD Geosciences abroad?
In PhD, absolutely, yes. The GRE is accepted for PhD programs. But again, you may want to check in with that university if they do need a GRE and what would be their cutoff scores.
If I take the GRE more than once, which score will be considered by the universities?
If you take the test more than once, the goal firstly for GRE is to be able to help students put their best foot forward to universities, which is why we offer so many flexible solutions and so many resources to support your journey while you're prepping for the test, which further helps you prep and be ready to be career ready, future ready, as well as program ready. So in terms of so we also have this one feature, which is you can choose which test score you want to send out to universities. This is especially applicable to those students who take the test more than once. And as per our surveys that we've seen, that we have a lot of students actually, more than 68% of students who will take the test more than once, at least in India, to be able to get that extra edge and have a better score on the GRE. So it again depends on about the student, if you want to send any of your scores, all of your scores, or the last one of your scores. At the time you finish your tests on the test day, you will be given that option to choose whether or not you want to send that particular score. And later on, you will also get the option to choose which particular score you want to send out to universities. So that freedom is with the students.
Remember that at the school level, we all work in the admissions office, not the rejections office. My reason for existing in my career has always been to admit people to our programs. I'm not looking to find the mistakes or the bad test score or things like that. Typically, every admissions person that I know, now there might be some, absolute top tier one schools that may be a little pickier, but for the most part, we look at your top score that we can see and say that's their true performance, that's their potential, not the day that you weren't feeling well and got a lower score. So know that that is even inside admissions offices. We give you the benefit of the doubt because ultimately we want you in our school if we can get you qualified.
Is there any age limit for appearing for the GRE exam? What is the eligibility criteria for appearing for the GRE General Test?
As far as I know, Sabahat, there is no age limit. In fact, we have students ranging from their 20s up until their mid 30s even, who are still wanting. Sometimes you want to, take a break, take some work experience, and then go back to, upskilling later on during a career. So we have students coming in really from all ages, and there's no real limit as such, at least from the GRE side. The next question around eligibility, this is a very common one again, because, it's almost always, it's only after your graduation when you want to pursue a master's degree or a leadership program or any executive kind of program. So that's going to be almost always after a bachelor's. So I think that's the general eligibility criteria.
Yeah, I've had students come through for graduate school age 18 on the low end, all the way through mid 50s. Now, I will tell you, if you're further along in your career, you're going to have to make a case why now is the right time for that degree in your education, and it may be. You just know that you might come across that question and be able to explain that.
How can I cancel my GRE score?
Well, at the time of you attempting the test, you will be receiving your unofficial scores as the last slide or as the last page on your test. It's around that time that you will be given the option to either submit your scores, or you'll also have the option to cancel your scores. But as GRE, we would never recommend you to cancel your scores. It's always good to submit it. And then you can also choose the universities where you want your scores to go directly.
Jay, this is for you. Where can I get prep material for the GRE?
That's a great question. There's plenty of different organizations out there that do prep. I know in India there's plenty of them. Those cost money, and so that really comes to what you're able to do there. However, if you do go through ETS directly, and you'll see the access to this as you sign up for the GRE itself. There are available some free materials on our website that you can use. It was just launched about a week ago called the Gre Mentor. I'm not exactly sure the price on that, but it's a whole course that you can go through online, and it was created by ETS, by the people who actually wrote the questions, and you can get an idea what's in their mind as they're writing these questions, and an entire test to take through there as a preparation. I want to say that the price point on that was about $100 for the full course. Of course, that's going to be up to you to actually take it. You're not going to be in a classroom with someone giving you due dates and this is the research you do. So it's going to be a little self-paced, but hopefully by the time you're preparing for that, you realize the importance of it and do set aside the time to prepare every day. But the resources are absolutely there. There are plenty of free resources on our website, throughout the web, and I'm sure in person you have classes there as well.
Another interesting question that I have from a student is whether I should go for self-preparation for GRE, or would you recommend taking help of a professional?
That's a very personal question down
Yes.
to the level of the individual. If you know how to prep yourself and you feel that you can do that yourself, that's how I did. I was teaching high school at the time, and I was teaching AP courses, and I knew what I was doing to get my students prepared for their test. And I just brought that home with me, and I said what I needed in my preparation was about 4 nights a week. I'd work 2 to 3 hours doing math problems. I was a liberal arts major, was not doing mathematics, so I had to review all of that, and I did well. I did fine, but it just that was where I had to start. I would say first thing to do in your study preparation, very first before anything else, is take a complete test, uninterrupted. If you can, go in your room, go in your office, whatever, and take a complete sample test. See how you do. See where your weaknesses are before you jump in, because why waste time trying to review things that you are already good at? So that's where I always start with the self-assessment. What do you need help with? Dive in and study that, and then come back and take at least one more test at the end before you sit down. That's what I would recommend. And I'm pretty sure what the ones that you pay for, I'm quite sure that they do something very similar with a pre-test and a post-test to figure out what you need.
Okay, another question. What should be my strategy for GRE preparation?
Go for it, Tanya.
I guess it would be pretty much what you just said in the last question. You take a mock test to truly understand where your strengths lie, and if you need any help and support, then you know you have it on. There are resources that are available with the GRE. We have official guides, some test preview tools, several books that are available all within the ETS account. You can just purchase them from there to figure out where your needs are. And if you feel you need support from an external test prep company, then there are more than enough of them to be able to support you and help you brush your skills. Same thing that Jay just said, actually.
Yeah, and when I took my assessment to get into grad school, the computer was not where it is today. So there weren't resources online like you have today. I went to the bookstore, got a book, about that thick, and that's the only thing I used to work through. And I felt that it was thorough to prepare me, but that was my commitment to doing it. So you know yourself. If you need someone standing over you, you can do it on your own.
Is GRE mandatory for applying to MS and PhD programs outside of India?
No, I wouldn't say it's mandatory. It again would depend on the universities and the courses that you're applying. And if they ask you for a GRE score, then absolutely yes. But on the flip side, I think it's always safe to take the GRE score and have it handy, because it does come down to be that differentiator in your whole application. When it comes to submissions, you want to be able to show your skills. You want to be able to show, how ready you are to take on the course, along with the other, application components that go in. So, Jay, you may add here. You'd be a better person.
I double what you said.
Does ETS help in matching students with graduate business and law schools?
There's a couple things that we do through ETS. We do have a site, Grad School Match, which is doing some of that. We are that's going to be grow in the coming years, from my understanding, to be even more. But one of the best things that you can do, there is something. I think it's a box that you check as you're signing up for it, and it's about the GRE or TOEFL, if you're taking that too, cert service. And what this does is put you on a list, and you get to tell, hey, I'm interested in, electrical engineering in the United States. You could even say on the West Coast of the United States or East Coast, whatever. Anyways, you give several identifiers in there, and schools are regularly coming to us and saying, hey, I'd like anybody who has taken the test, who is looking on the West Coast for electrical engineering, and then we work with them. They get your name and are able to actually reach out to you and start that conversation with the school. That is one of the best things that you can do, is make sure you're included on that list. That doesn't mean you have to respond to every school. It doesn't mean every school that contacts you is going to be, top of your list. But it does show you the schools that are pursuing individuals like yourself, because they've put you in a category of these are some of the type of students we would like to have here, or where we're trying to grow our population. So I definitely do that. Obviously, at the end of the day, a lot of that connecting with schools is going to be back on you, and going to the schools that you're interested in, going to their websites and reaching out to their admissions people. And don't be scared to reach out to admissions people. We're actually nice folk, I promise.
How important is the GRE score in helping secure scholarships for graduate studies?
Again, most of these universities, when they launch any scholarships, it would always be again on their websites. as to what are the criteria that you need to fulfill to be able to be eligible for that scholarship. And sometimes GRE score, your economic background, all of these factors come into play to be able to get that scholarship. So again, it's a yes and no kind of answer. I'd say it would depend on whichever university you're applying for, what scholarship you're applying for, and whether that has to be that right fit, which you'll be able to determine whether or not you are eligible. Jay, would you like to add something here?
Again, I hate this always being my answer, but it depends on the school and the program. So reaching out directly to the programs can be the best way to know. But I will say, when I was in admissions, I oversaw the financial aid process as well. Scores were certainly a big part of that consideration. As we've gone into a COVID era, and admissions has changed at many schools, and they don't necessarily require the test. It's maybe a test optional situation. So many of those I've heard, like at the conference I'm at now in Boston, and just meeting with the schools that I work with, hear so often that they still rely on the test to determine scholarship. So it may not be required for admissions, but when it comes to scholarship, they may take it more into consideration. So again, my answer is it depends. Every school is different. Every program is different.
Can the GRE score be checked online, and when?
So once on the day you give your test, right at the point of submission, you are able to view your unofficial verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning scores on the day of the test. These are unofficial. After that, in about 10 to 15 days time, you will be able to get your official scores, which will include your analytical writing scores as well. So all in all, you do understand half of your scores in the beginning, right on the day of the test, and there will be slight changes with your AW scores that are added in, and that's how you have your final scores. 2 weeks time.
How to send GRE score reports to the colleges, universities, institutions, whatever you may call them?
Sure. There's you get four free score reports sent to schools, and as you register and prepare for the test, that's where you want to know those 4 schools that you're going to send to as you're getting prepared to take the test. I believe it's actually at the testing center where you choose where you're going to send them. You don't have to send them at that point to anybody, but if you're on some sort of time crunch or whatever, you need to make sure you go ahead and put that on the original to not get things delayed. You can come back later and purchase more score reports beyond those 4, and hey, you can send them to every university in the world if that's what you want to do. But you really want to target what are those 4 primary schools, and then maybe you have a few extra that you're going to buy some extra reports afterwards.
How can I order additional score reports?
Very simple again. You have to just go into your ETS account, and there is a tab over there that says view or buy additional score reports. So you just click on the buttons, go through the process, and make the payment. It's about $27 per score report. So you can choose how many ever you need and go ahead with sending out your scores like that.
How can I change the location and time of my test?
Sure. Again, you can reschedule your tests in terms of location and time from your ETS account directly. You can, another way to do it is maybe send out an email or connect with the regional registration center that is available. So I can, send out those details with you from India, who you want to touch base with. But more or less, it can happen easily from the ETS account itself.
Do universities consider photocopies of the GRE scorecard? Do I have to send scores through ETS?
In today's era, everything comes to us via computer anyways, especially after this COVID situation. So official scores typically are coming into schools electronically almost immediately after you send them. So really, in the last few years of me working in an admissions office, a photocopy is not very common. I will tell you that photocopy is not an official score. Some schools, one school I worked at, we would have admitted you and required it before you set foot on our campus to have the official. The other school I worked at would not accept anything that was not official, period. So really, I would have tried all the best to avoid that situation. Yes, it can happen that a school will take your score report. It's probably more going to be a PDF than a photocopy if you're applying, overseas. But eventually, you are going to have to send an official score report. Absolutely, that's part of our test security, both at ETS and at the level of any school.
What if I have an issue right before the test and my start time gets extended?
See, if you're taking the test at a test center, then you can always, request for the proctor on there to come and support you. If you're taking the test from home, there is always a proctor who's, viewing you online. And there will be a mechanism that's included when you switch on your computer and take the test from home. There is like a little owl actually that starts jumping, or you can just press on it and request for support from the proctor over there. There is support at all times, during the test as well.
How important are extracurricular activities? Please advise on how to build my profile.
Sure, I'll take this one. Again, every school and every program is going to be different on this. I'm going to speak from the business school perspective because that's where I come from. What I know of the engineering side, extracurricular maybe not as important as the academic background, but don't absolutely quote me on that because you're going to come across engineering schools that's extremely important. Business schools basically across the board, yes, we want to see that you are something more than a person who goes to school. And all you do there. I used to say, be active in your community in some sort of way. I want to know that there is more to you than you go to school and then you play PlayStation when you come home. Love PlayStation, have no problem with it, but be active in something. Something team oriented is always going to be good to show that your ability to work with others is up there. Giving back to your community, playing on sports teams is always a plus. There's so many different things that you can do, and there's not one that is the key to everything. It is show your personality, be you, be more than just I go to school then I come home. And such a variety of things that you can do, so many interesting things in the world. And then part of that is because when we get you on our campus, we want you to be active on our campus. You're not going, if you're coming here to the United States to study, it's not just to learn business or engineering. It is to learn the culture, a lot of the culture and interaction that you have, not only with the Americans, but the students from around the world who come to our programs. I would always tell my students, do something that you never thought you would do, especially in school, but maybe even before. We always had a ballroom dancing group, and I would tell my business students, hey, go join that. Do you know how to dance? Because you're probably going to have to do that someday. Just show that you are more than just the academics. Again, I'm really speaking towards business schools. It may vary in the different programs you're looking at, but yes, we want to know that we're bringing in not only smart, but interesting and sociable individuals.
That was a very, very, very insightful thought on the question. Okay, so thank you, Jay and Tanya, for such an informative and engaging session on the GRE. Through this webinar, we hope that a lot of doubts have been cleared and a lot of minds have been made up. With this, it is time to sign off. Careers 360 will be back again with more such sessions for all students out there aspiring to study abroad in their choice of institutions. Thank you so much.